Hello, my name is Daniel. Thank you for being here with me today. If you enjoy real, heartbreaking cheating stories from Reddit, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot to me. This is one of those stories that made me sit in silence after reading it, not because it shocked me, but because it reminded me how deeply betrayal can ripple through the years, disguised as friendship, only to unravel everything when you least expect it. My name is Clara. I am 37 years old and live in Asheville, North Carolina. This story isn't about a stranger. It's about two women I used to call my closest friends. Back in college, it was just the three of us, me, Tessa, and Morgan. We were inseparable. After graduation, our group slowly grew to include 4 more women, but the three of us remained at the core. Or so I thought. It was about 2 years ago when everything started to fracture. Morgan, who was 36 at the time, admitted she'd been seeing a married man. Her defense? He was miserable in his marriage and needed emotional comfort. I begged her to stop. I told her this wasn't the way to find love or respect. But instead of listening, she lashed out, called me judgmental, cold, even cruel. The others, including Tessa, didn't agree with the affair, but none of them wanted to get involved. Not our problem, they said. But it was my problem. I couldn't pretend her affair wasn't hurting someone. I knew the man's wife. He had introduced us once, briefly, at a dinner. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it because if I were in her shoes, I would have wanted to know. So I told her. I told her everything I knew. And just like that, I was cut off. Tessa didn't speak to me again. She told the others I was a traitor, a fake friend. Morgan was devastated, not because of what she did, but because the man she was with chose to repair his marriage instead of running away with her. So she clung to Tessa, and I was left outside, abandoned by the very people I once trusted with everything. 2 years passed. 2 years of silence, of hearing rumors that I had ruined everything. Then last month, I got a call. It was Tessa. She was crying so hard I could barely make out the words. Morgan had been sleeping with her husband for months, and Tessa had just found out. She kept asking how could she do this to me. I defended her. I stood by her. Her voice cracked like someone clinging to the edge of something that's already broken. And in that moment, something in me snapped. All the years of being painted the villain, of being shunned for telling the truth, I couldn't stop myself. I told her she should have seen it coming, that Morgan had already shown us who she was, that she betrayed one marriage before and now it was hers. I told her the moment she justified sleeping with a married man, she crossed a line that she'd never come back from. Loyalty doesn't grow in that kind of soil. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't even angry anymore. Just tired. Tired of pretending I was the one who had done something wrong. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew I had gone too far. Other friends reached out after and said I was too harsh. That yes, what I said was true, but Tessa was going through a divorce. That I could have been kinder, more compassionate. Maybe they're right. I do feel sorry for her. No one deserves what happened. But I also believe that sometimes when someone you love is headed for a cliff, you try to pull them back. And when they push you away, maybe the only thing left is to watch them fall and grieve for what you used to share. Was I cruel or just brutally honest? I don't know anymore. All I know is that even now, a part of me aches for how things could have been different. If only they had listened. If only she had. I've thought about those years often, about the nights we laughed over cheap wine and made promises we didn't know we'd break. Tessa used to say we were the kind of friends who would grow old together. But it turns out some friendships crumble long before the first gray hair ever grows in. After Tessa called me in tears, after I told her the truth she didn't want to hear, something strange happened. People started messaging me. Old friends from the group, people who had once pushed me aside, now came quietly, cautiously, offering their takes. A few said I was too blunt. Others, though, said I had simply told the truth, and sometimes the truth hurts more than silence. "I don't think you were harsh," one friend wrote. "You were just the only one willing to say what everyone else was thinking. Morgan always played with fire. It was only a matter of time before someone else got burned." Another message read, "You stuck to your principles. That's more than I can say for most. People think staying quiet makes them loyal, but all it does is protect the wrong person." Reading those words stirred something painful and bitter in me. I didn't want to feel vindicated. I wanted none of this to have happened. I wanted the version of us that used to talk about starting a book club, about traveling to Italy together. I wanted the version of Tessa who hadn't looked at me like I was a monster for doing the right thing. And yet she had, for 2 years. One message that hit especially hard came from someone who'd watched it all unfold from the sidelines. She said, "I feel for Tessa, I truly do, but she stood by Morgan when Morgan was destroying another woman's life. There was no empathy then. Why does she expect it now?" It haunted me, because it was true. That first wife, who never knew me, never even thanked me, deserved more compassion than she got. And Morgan had shown no remorse. She wore that affair like a badge, as if it made her powerful to tear a family apart. Looking back, I still don't regret reaching out to that wife. Morgan made her choices. She knew what she was doing, and she did it anyway. And I couldn't stay silent. If I had been the one being cheated on, I would have wanted to know. So I gave the wife the truth that was being hidden from her. That doesn't make me a villain. It makes me human. But after all the messages, the comments, the noise, I reached out to Tessa again. I told her I was sorry for how I spoke to her. I wasn't sorry for what I said, but I was sorry for the weight of it and how I let my anger speak instead of my heart. She didn't deserve to be kicked while she was already sinking. And as much as part of me wanted to walk away forever, another part needed her to know I still saw the pain behind her choices. She cried again, this time softer. She told me how Morgan had been her rock, even when her own parents had cut ties with her over other life choices, how she had clung to their friendship like a lifeline. And now that lifeline had become the blade that cut her deepest. Out of curiosity, I asked her if she was going to stay with her husband. She told me the marriage was already over. He begged, of course, begged for forgiveness, for therapy, even offered to open the marriage if that would somehow erase the damage. But Tessa was resolute. She was filing for divorce. She looked tired, not just physically, but spiritually. She told me she believed this was her punishment from God, that this heartbreak was karma. She's always been more religious than I ever was, but hearing her say it out loud still made something in my chest ache. Before we hung up, she asked me if I could forgive her. I said yes, and I meant it. I do forgive her. But that doesn't mean we'll ever be close again. The bond we had, whatever pieces were left of it, dissolved in that long silence she gave me. I wish her healing. I wish her peace. But I no longer wish to stand beside her as she finds them. She understood. She didn't argue. Maybe she knew this ending was always waiting. Maybe she's known since the moment she turned her back on me. I don't hate her. I never did. I just wish we had all chosen different paths before the damage was irreversible. Some friendships aren't broken. They're simply mourned. And Tessa, she'll be a name I carry like a faded scar. Nothing more. Tessa never told me what happened when she finally confronted her husband. She didn't need to. I could hear it in her voice the last time we spoke. Fragile, hollow, like something had broken so completely there was no point in trying to fix it. From what I've heard, she's going through with the divorce. She's not looking back. As for Morgan, well, karma finally caught up with her. Word gets around, especially in a small place like Asheville. A few of the women from our old circle quietly dropped me a message, some out of guilt, others just to gossip. But they all said the same thing. No one wants anything to do with Morgan anymore. Apparently, the remaining women in our group have finally started seeing her for who she really is. Some are even afraid she might target their husbands next. There's something about betrayal that suddenly becomes real when it's knocking on your own front door. They're keeping their distance now, not because they've developed some new moral compass, but because Morgan's chaos is getting a little too close to home. To be honest, I'm not surprised. Morgan's never shown an ounce of remorse. She moves through people's lives like fire through dry leaves. And when everything's ash, she walks away without ever looking back. I don't think she even believes she's doing anything wrong. She goes after men who are taken, married, engaged, committed, it doesn't matter. Maybe she sees it as a challenge, a game. Maybe she just enjoys the destruction. I don't know anymore. But what I do know is that I'm thankful I cut ties with her long before she had the chance to ruin my life too. Someone online commented that everyone sucks here, that maybe I shouldn't be so self-righteous, and that just because I would want to know if I were being cheated on doesn't mean everyone else feels the same way. They called me a messenger with no accountability, said I was inserting myself where I didn't belong. But here's the thing. If your partner was sleeping with someone behind your back, wouldn't you want to know? Isn't that the bare minimum of dignity you deserve in a relationship? I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. I wasn't the one sneaking around in hotel rooms or writing love notes to a married man. All I did was tell the truth. If that makes me a villain in someone's story, so be it. At least I can sleep at night. Another comment that stuck with me said, Tessa got what she defended. She stood by Morgan when Morgan broke someone else's home, and now she knows what that feels like. It sounds cold, but there's truth in it. Tessa chose to support someone doing something cruel, and when the cruelty turned on her, she was shocked. Maybe that's why she feels like God is punishing her. Maybe, deep down, she knows she let something ugly grow too close. There's a kind of code some people live by. Loyalty above all. Stand by your friends no matter what. But loyalty without integrity isn't loyalty. It's cowardice in disguise. It's easier to stay silent, to look away, to say, it's not my business. That's what most of our friends did. And now they're all scrambling, wondering who's next. I hope they remember how they treated me when I tried to be the one honest voice in a room full of whispers. Tessa told me once that Morgan was her ride or die. I remember laughing at the time, not because it was funny, but because it sounded so desperately naive. Morgan would never ride for anyone but herself, and she certainly wouldn't die for anyone either. Tessa asked for my forgiveness, and I gave it to her. I meant it. But forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Some fractures run too deep to be repaired, and I'm done patching holes in relationships built on silence and self-interest. I don't wish Morgan harm. I don't wish Tessa pain. But I do wish they'd both learn something from all this. I hope Tessa finds peace in her own time. I hope Morgan one day feels the full weight of what she's done. Not out of revenge, but out of the hope that maybe then she'll finally stop. As for me, I'm moving on. Slowly, quietly, with fewer friends, but with my conscience intact. And I'm holding close the kind of people who value honesty, even when it hurts. Because the truth is, you don't lose anything real by cutting off the ones who thrive on lies. You just finally make space for something honest to grow. There's a girl who lives a few houses down from my mom. I don't know her name. I've only seen her a handful of times, but every time I do, she looks like she's barely holding herself together. Pale, withdrawn, moving like someone who's afraid to take up space. And every single time she's with her husband, she keeps her head down like it's safer not to be seen. My mother, Eleanor, is 77 and has lived in her home in Asheville since the year I was born. She doesn't drive much anymore, and the garden she once loved is mostly weeds now, but it's her safe place, her routine, her last bit of independence. And now she's terrified in it. You see, that girl's husband, the man who terrifies her, is trying to move in right next door to my mother. He's loud, aggressive, the kind of person who uses his size as a weapon. He once stood in our driveway screaming over a parking space, his voice echoing through the street like a warning. My mother was inside, clutching the edge of the kitchen sink like it might hold her up. Since then, she avoids going outside when she sees his car. Now, that man's family is trying to get the now vacant, subsidized home next door. They've asked us to sign a petition to support their placement, framing it as a sweet story, a daughter wanting to live near her aging parents, a nice garden for the grandkids. But behind the smiles and the please, there's something darker. That man, that threat, and the girl, God, the girl. I think her parents suspect what's happening behind closed doors. Her sadness, her silence, it doesn't feel like the product of a bad week. It feels like something chronic, something dangerous. My conscience is torn. Someone online asked me if I could report this anonymously. In theory, yes, but the truth is, even in systems meant to protect, fear still lingers. What if it gets traced back to me? What if he finds out? What if my mother pays the price for my decision? Someone else asked why the family didn't just wait their turn. Surely someone on the list longer deserved the spot more. And they're right. But things don't always work fairly. Sometimes the ones who shout the loudest get heard first, and my voice, quiet and careful, is barely a whisper next to his. My mother can't move. Emotionally, she's too tied to this place. Financially, the house isn't worth enough to start over. She's already started locking the doors during the day, flinching at knocks that sound too hard. When I suggested we refuse to sign the petition, she begged me to stay quiet. "Don't make him angry," she whispered. "Please don't." I posted online hoping someone would help me make sense of it. The replies came quickly. "Report him," they said. "Do it for your mom, for that girl." One user shared that they'd lived under a man just like him, and the fear had reshaped their entire life. Another told me to document everything, recordings, doorbell footage, every incident, just in case things escalated. One comment stood out. "Living across from your mom is not a valid reason to jump the housing list, no matter how sweet the story sounds. That house has requirements, rules, and if she's scared now, imagine how she'll feel when he's there every day." Someone who works in social housing even told me the petition likely means nothing, that priority is based on vulnerability, medical need, and time on the list, not convenience, not persuasion. Still, they warned me, do what you need to do to stay safe, but don't assume the petition is harmless. It could draw attention, and not the kind you want. So, with my mother's hesitant blessing, I contacted the local housing authority. The woman on the line sounded tired but kind. She chuckled when I told her about the petition. She said they already have a place to live. People on the list, real people in crisis, come first. We'll make note of your concerns. She recommended we sign the petition anyway, not as approval, but as camouflage. Keep the peace, she advised. Stay small. Let us handle it from here. Yesterday, someone dropped the petition off at my mother's doorstep. The same shaky smile, the same too nice voice. My mother signed it with trembling hands. I didn't stop her. I wish I had. but she looked so tired, so scared. And for now, all I can do is hope. Hope that the system works, that someone out there will protect the quiet people who can't protect themselves, especially the ones like my mother. I suppose the only small comfort left is knowing I did what I could. After speaking to the local housing officer, I learned my concerns had been documented and passed along to the appropriate department, including their unit for antisocial behavior. That call didn't fix everything, but it lifted a bit of the dread I'd been carrying around like a second skin. The woman I spoke to even thanked me, told me it was important that people like me speak up. Still, I'd be lying if I said I felt brave. Conflict has never been something I navigate well. I was always the quiet one in our friend group, the one who avoided confrontation, even when it meant swallowing discomfort. That habit stayed with me for far too long. But one person told me that fear of being rude should never outweigh the need to protect yourself or your family, and for the first time I truly believe that. The petition arrived at my mother's door last week. She signed it, hand trembling, heart racing. The man, still all smiles, still pretending none of his past behavior existed, stood on the porch while she wrote her name. She didn't want to. I know she didn't. But fear is persuasive. And in that moment, she chose the path of least resistance, hoping silence would keep her safe. I let her do it. I didn't stop her. I wanted to, but I saw the panic in her eyes, the exhaustion in her shoulders. So I stood behind her and said nothing. I'll carry the weight of that choice for a long time. And now I want to shift gears and share another story, one that speaks to a different kind of heartbreak, the kind that takes root inside a family. This one comes from a man named Ethan, 38, who lives just outside Flagstaff, Arizona, with his wife Rachel, 36, and their 3 children. Their twins, Jonah and Natalie, are 14, and their youngest son, Caleb, is 12. Ethan reached out because something is broken in his home and he doesn't know how to fix it. The tension started quietly, then grew louder with time. Caleb had long believed that Rachel favored Jonah over him. Ethan didn't want to believe it at first, chalked it up to sibling rivalry. But the truth was harder. Subtle things, hugs that lingered longer, words of praise that rarely made their way to Caleb. Eventually, even Natalie noticed. Caleb pulled away. He stopped speaking to his mother unless necessary and referred to her by her first name instead of Mom. He avoided Jonah too, barely acknowledging him. And when either tried to reach out, Caleb responded with bitterness and sarcasm. The bond between them frayed, then disappeared altogether. It all came to a head on Rachel's birthday. Family gathered, friends filled the living room, laughter filled the air. Rachel, hopeful, had slipped a handwritten invitation under Caleb's door the night before. He didn't respond. He stayed in his room the entire party. That was expected. What wasn't expected was the gift. One package had Caleb's name on it. Rachel, surprised but touched, opened it first. Inside was a homemade collage, one that turned the room to ice. Family photos had been altered. Caleb had cut himself out of every image. Rachel's face was defaced, horns drawn over her head, crude insults scrawled across her forehead. Gasps echoed around the room. Rachel burst into tears and fled. The party ended right there. No cake, no singing, just silence. Caleb refused to come out. Ethan let him be for the moment, but Rachel was livid. She demanded a harsh punishment, no electronics for a month. Ethan refused. He told her that punishing Caleb like that would only deepen the divide, pushing him further into resentment and isolation. Rachel didn't take it well. She accused Ethan of enabling him, of choosing peace over accountability. In her anger, Rachel wasn't thinking of reconciliation. She wanted Caleb to hurt the way she did. Later, she softened slightly, said she wanted therapy, but only for her and Caleb. The others are fine, she insisted. Ethan wasn't so sure. Their entire home felt fractured, like everyone was walking on shards of something that used to be whole. He spoke to Caleb, who eventually apologized to Rachel and even allowed a brief, hesitant hug. He said he was open to therapy, but scared, understandably so. To outsiders, this might sound like just another family struggle, but to those inside, it's a silent collapse. A boy who feels unloved, a mother who feels betrayed, a father stuck in the middle, watching the people he loves slip further away from each other. And Ethan, he knows he should have acted sooner. He sees that now. The signs were there, but like so many of us, he hoped it would fix itself. But sometimes, time doesn't heal anything. Sometimes, it just lets the damage go deeper. Clara sat with her arms folded across her chest, staring blankly at the text from Ethan. His words felt more like a quiet plea than a statement, like someone clinging to a thread before the unraveling finished. He told Rachel she needed to take accountability, that if she refused to see how her favoritism toward Jonah had broken Caleb's trust, they'd lose him completely. Therapy wasn't a punishment, it was a lifeline. But Rachel only wanted to go with Caleb, believing their twins were perfectly fine. They weren't. None of them were. Not even Ethan. One commenter summed it up perfectly. If you don't demand full family therapy, you're just reinforcing the lie that Caleb is the problem. The home Ethan described wasn't just fractured, it was a war zone disguised as a living room. Silence between family members, avoidance, tears behind closed doors. And still, Rachel wouldn't see it. Ethan was stuck, and Clara knew that feeling too well. The helplessness of watching something crumble and realizing love alone wouldn't fix it. She read the message one last time and sighed, her fingers trembling, before she finally typed back, "You have to fight for him now, not later, before it's too late." Favoritism in families can do more than just hurt feelings. It can destroy relationships, create lifelong emotional wounds, and fracture the stability children need most. When one child consistently feels unloved or unseen, they don't just grow resentful. They begin to believe they're unworthy of love altogether. In Ethan's case, Caleb responded the only way he knew how, through distance and outburst. But the real solution was never punishment. It was recognition, healing, and connection. If you find yourself in a similar position, whether as a parent, a child, or even an outsider looking in, remember this: early intervention matters. Family therapy can open doors to conversations that silence has locked shut for years. Acknowledging pain doesn't make you weak, it makes you brave. And accountability doesn't destroy families. Denial does. If you see signs of emotional neglect, isolation, or favoritism, act. Have hard conversations, seek help, and always prioritize the emotional well-being of every member of the family, not just the ones who seem easiest to love. Healing takes time, but it also takes choice.